What's good, guys? This is John Roche with Everyday Gaming. We want to do something a little different. We're here with a Pro Play Tour first event, kind of event profile. I'm here with fellow sponsored players. Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
I'm Dan.
I'm Josh.
And the three of us last weekend in Atlantic City, all top 16'd. So I think we're going to do a little bit of a breakdown of what our matchups were and who we played, what we played against, and just kind of go from there. So I think we're going to go ahead and start off with Dan.
The event was 6 rounds. After Swiss, I had placed 5th. My round 1 was against Shadow Paladin. That game was a 2-1 win. Game 1 against the Shadow Paladin player, I was playing Neonectars. Game 1, really nothing worth note. It was just standard plays. I had managed to gain advantage over them, managed to win that game. Game 2, I had lost that. Their push play was using Phantom Blaster's retire skill twice to beef it up, and then dealt me a damage with its secondary effect. Unfortunately, I didn't hit any sort of damage trigger to try to balance out the attack difference, so that cost me the game. And then game 3, again, standard plays, I managed to outgrind them after several turns, and that got me the victory in round 1. Round 2, I played against Genesis. That was a 2-0 victory. The match had gone maybe about 4 turns in. I had gotten to my second grade 3 ride, Cecilia, but what really came down to it was my opponent wasn't able to ride Himiko. She had to ride the non-force marker grade 3, but she did manage to get the effect of Witcher Frog's Melissa off twice, which set me back a bit, but in card advantage wise in the deck. But every time she had done that, she had managed to make my board better than what it was previously before she used the effect. Wow. So that gave me massive field advantage. Round 3 was against a Neonectar. That was a 2-0 victory. Nothing really of note there, just standard plays going back and forth. Round 4 was against another Genesis deck. Game 1, I had won. He wasn't really sure what to do. He had just built the deck that morning. But game 2, he had rode Himiko and just constantly used the effect to get the draw and crit trigger off constantly across his board. Same thing happened in game 3, and that got him the victory. Round 5 was against Kagero. That was a 2-0 victory. My opponent had hand advantage constantly. They weren't really calling out that many rear guards, and I needed to push with my Vanguard through. So he had constantly just kept guarding for 2 to pass both games, and I had constantly hit 2 crit on those attacks and pushed the damage through and got it there. Round 6 was against Neonectar. That was a 2-1 victory. I didn't call Cecilia game 1 or see any boosters, and I also constantly saw cards come a turn late. Like I would take a damage, it would be a booster, and then draw a heal trigger, or I needed a booster 1 turn, not see it, drive check it that turn, and have to waste it guarding his Vanguard. Game 2, I was about ready to lose. I had 4 damage. I haven't seen a grade 3 yet, and he had hit me with a critical on his grade 3 Vanguard before I can get up to my grade 3. And luckily I had managed to hit a draw trigger on the 5th damage and a heal on the 6th, which put me back in the game. And then game 3, I had won. My opponent experienced the same situation I went through game 1, where he didn't see his Cecilia. He had too many grade 2s, not enough boosters, wasn't hitting triggers, so that got me the game.
So I was basically breaking for the deck?
Kind of. Yeah, if you don't see too many boosters, you can't get your numbers up high enough. And that was how my 6 rounds went.
How many people were at the event?
There were 64.
64?
Yeah, the event was originally scheduled to be a 1K, but 64 players put it past the threshold to turn it into a $1,500 tournament.
I played OTT at the event. It's the deck I'm most comfortable with. You can see deck list below. My rounds went, basically it was a tale of 2 tournaments for me. Round 1, I played against Neo Nectar. Force matchups in general are very easy for OTT, and as long as you play your card advantage correctly, like they have a problem breaking you. Game 1, I rode perfectly. He got stuck on Tomato for 1 turn too long, and he just couldn't out advantage me when time he got to Cecilia. And then game 2, he hit right, but I was just hitting better. Like my triggers came the right one time. I was, forcing the crit trigger on the attack, so he was forced to always guard the vanguard and then the rear guards. OTT's magic numbers are against force decks are really good at hitting to the 23 and then with trigger 33, constantly forcing 15 to 20k, 25k guards. Made that matchup pretty simple for me. Round 2 I played against Deep Lease. The matchup gets actually a little scary if they have like ultimate Dayusha in hand and they can just keep pushing that turn. My first opponent had round 1 he had to G assist, hit the regular Dayusha, and then drove checked ultimate Dayusha. I was able to just partition my damage correctly though, so that way I could survive his push that turn and the next turn just kind of kill off his hand advantage. Game 2 went pretty well. He ultimate Dayusha me 3 times. I was able to, again, I kept myself low damage early, survived his rush in the late game because I was able to take extra damage, and then just out-grinded him from there. Round 3, this is where I made my biggest mistake of the day. I was playing against Genesis. I didn't know really what the deck did. I had like some testing going into the event. This was the weekend the deck came out. Game 1, he started to go off, and we got to a point where I finally figured out what the deck was doing, and he counted cards in deck and was able to Melissa me twice in a turn, which brought me down to 5 cards in deck. And then he attacked with his Vanguard, and this is where I made my mistake. I had like 13 cards in hand and 4 perfects, and I guarded for 2 to pass, even though he checked the top 2 with the grade 3, and proceeded to double trigger me to hit me to 5 damage. The following turn I drew for turn, had 2 cards left in deck, was unable to attack with my Vanguard, to his 3 cards in hand and 5 damage. So if I would have just guarded the Vanguard for either a perfect guard or no pass, I would have been able to just, he was not guarding my 3 attacks on my turn, so it would have won me game 1. Game 2 basically went the way that game 1 should have went. He tried to Melissa my deck out. I was able to survive the Melissa. Next turn, even with like 3 cards left in deck, I rode Deer to put my board up high enough that he was not guarding any of my attacks at 5 damage. And then game 3, I didn't see a grade 3 on my first G assist, and then when I did finally get to a grade 3, I had to raw ride Imperial Daughter, and then did not see a grade 3 for the rest of the game. So that matchup was rough. The game 1 punt really hurt me because that put me in the X1 bracket, and in the X1 bracket I just saw nothing but Excel decks for the rest of the day. My round 4 was against Pale Moon. Game 1, it got to a point I was at 3 damage. He got 9 attacks off that turn.
Oh my god.
I had to Miracle Heal, and I just didn't have enough cards. Could not guard 9 attacks, and I didn't hit a single damage trigger. Game 2, I hit a damage trigger on his push turn, was able to survive 7 attacks, and next turn kill him because he had 2 cards left in hand. And then game 3, I was at 2 damage when he started his turn. He proceeded to again have 9 or 10 attacks that turn. I took 3 damage in the course of this, did not damage check a single trigger, and just couldn't guard the last like 3 attacks. Like he just brought Alice's out at 25s, and I'm sitting there at my 12k Vanguard with not enough shield.
It's the Excel matchups not having perfect guards don't really help you that much against Excel matchups. You would rather the extra cards in your hand be even 5k shields. Like 5k shields even are enough to like guard some of their smaller columns. But like when you're stacked with like 3 or 4 perfect cards in hand, it's just not enough to keep you going. Like it got to a point where a lot of my Excel matchups, like if I check the top card and it's a perfect guard with either like CEO's effect or Imperial Daughter's effect, I actually a lot of times throw them to the bottom just because I don't want to see the perfect guard on the drive check. I would rather there be literally any other cards in my hand. Because you have to, unless you're perfect guarding, discarding perfect guards, which I do a lot in those type of matchups, they just don't help you that much. Like you need your other like 10Ks and your 5Ks and your 15Ks to be 1 card per attack. So I lost that round. Round 5 I played Great Nature, another new deck for the weekend. I had a better idea of what that deck did because I was helping my teammate the night before test it. Game 1, it was another one of the situations where like he got stuck on Bison for 1 turn too long, but like he had the Panda, and that combo can put a lot of pressure just by itself because that's like the Panda is constantly hitting for 27 or 32 on the second attack, and being the static 17 in the Excel circle is just. There was a lot of times where like, oh, I should hit his rear guard. It's like, oh wait, I can't hit that. So as the attack just fizzles because he damage checked a trigger and put it on the Vanguard and had nothing else for me to hit. But he got stuck on Bison, didn't see Leopold until turn 3 of his grade 3. But at that point, I was already up in card advantage, so I kind of just outgrinded him from there. Game 2, he got to Leopold. He rolled Leopold twice, and it was just another one. I survived the turn because his other columns just weren't as good. Like he had something in his Excel circle, but then like only one other attacker with no booster behind it. And then the following turn, he finally got to like a Monoculous Tiger, which then I obviously did not know the effect of Monoculous Tiger. He said I couldn't perfect guard it when he hit I think he has to hit the trigger on the drive check, not normal unit. Okay. So he hit it, couldn't perfect guard it, but it was okay because the column was still manageable enough, and I still had enough card advantage to just kind of like survive the turn. I survived the turn with like 2 cards in hand, so really good game, but still took the surprising 2-0 victory against an Excel matchup. My final round was against Pale Moon. Again, I played 2 Pale Moons that day. Game 1, I pushed him to 5 damage on his grade 2 ride.
Oh my.
It basically set me up but I kept myself at 1. It set me up that he had all the counterblasts he wanted for his grade 3 ride. He was able to get off, I think it was 7 or 8 attacks, but I had 4 damage to give and still had like 9 cards in hand because I hit Perfect Ride, obviously hit the Circle Magus, into the Chicken effect, into, I think I joke check a draw trigger. So it was enough that he put me to 5, but didn't hit a heal trigger on his attack, so it basically put me in a position where I put 3 columns out, Imp Daughter had a crit, and just pushed for game.
Did you hit any damage triggers?
I hit 1, I think, but it was on like the last attack, which only like blocked his second to last attack, I think, because he still had a 25 Alice, so it was like it did enough, but I still also had enough cards to like guard everything that turn. Game 2, I tried to control it. I didn't have the early rush against him, and I was just trying to control his counterblast. He got basically. I thought I had the game won, but then he on the attack of the Vanguard, boosting and with Midnight Rabbit, he got the Soul Charge effect and hit Cerberus into Soul, the one that led to the countercharger, the grade 3, which then allowed him that I thought he only would have had 1 counterblast that turn, put him to 2, and 2 gave him the extra attack he needed that I couldn't guard the last attack, had to take it and ended up dying that turn. Which forced us to Game 3. Game 3 was super grindy. We went back and forth the entire time. He went for his big push. I almost died but survive. I went for my big push. He almost dies but survives. But he has no counterblast left because he literally had to guard all my attacks and used all of his counterblasts. So like the next turn he didn't have a damage on Flipper. I guarded the Vanguard for 2 to pass. He hits no trigger. I guard the last 2 columns. Go to my turn, but I have like no cards in hand. I had a perfect guard left in hand. I was on Imperial Daughter with 1 booster. I drew into turn for another perfect guard. Ended up calling both perfect guards out of my hand, using Imp Daughter's effect to make her bigger. Pushed to Vanguard. He did the numbers. He was 5k short. He could have guarded the Vanguard for no pass, but then he couldn't guard the last column. So he ended up guarding for 2 to pass on the Vanguard, but he kind of messed up the numbers because if I hit one, he basically was gambling. If I hit 1 trigger, I win the game because the other column he couldn't guard. First check, I hit nothing. Second check, I hit crit trigger. That pushed the last column. He went from 5 to 7. So that was my rounds. Again, force decks was what I wanted to see. I made 1 mistake against the force deck, and then I saw nothing but Excel, but I was very happy with myself being able to go 2-1 in the back end against Excel, putting me to a 4-2 record after Swiss, and I finished 10th place. So that was my Swiss rounds.
All right, what's up, guys? Josh. I played Kagero at this event. I also played Kagero at the ARGs. I just think it's better for the meta. I expected a lot of great nature. Didn't play against too many Excel matchups, but I still think Kagero was the right call. Round 1, played against OTT. Kind of got scared with that one. OTT is the one deck I'm afraid of. However, I was able to 2-0 him. So first game, he didn't have a lot going for him. He rode CEO, but had to stay on CEO. Didn't really see any more grade 3s. And I had on turn, like, I had the perfect Overlord into Waterfall again. There wasn't really like any crazy triggers going on. It was just an all-around, like, he didn't get what he wanted, I got what I wanted. It was an easy game 1. Game 2 was arguably even worse for him. I kept retiring his units because he kept calling. He didn't have any Promise Daughters, surprisingly, and he just kept calling like good boosters and stuff. I played 4 Nelahim, so I was able to just counterblast 1, get rid of him. Easy for me, makes it easier for me to guard. So then we're just grinding out. I'm retiring a lot of stuff. He's just doing damage. Put myself to 5 because I want to stay at 5, especially for like a waterfall turn. And he goes into Deer, but the problem with his Deer is he only deered and then played 1 Promise Daughter, so his board was empty instead of that. So he deers for 2 cards, and off the top 7 gets 1 crit. So he puts the crit on top, and I was like, all right, this got a lot easier for me to guard this turn. Had he gotten 2 crits, I would have probably dropped my whole hand, but I didn't have to. I perfect guarded the Vanguard and was just able to block the rear guard. Went to my turn, waterfalled when he was at 4. Realized he had nothing in hand. I played Dragonic Gaia's, counterblasted 1. That was the end of that round. Round 2, played Gold Paladin. That was an easy 2-0. Gold Paladin they have to call a lot of cards, but they really can't deal with the constant retiring. So game 1 was an easy win. I saw my waterfalls, just kept going through with it. Game 2, he got grade screwed. He made a really interesting choice to ride his grade 1 when he was grade screwed. He chose to stay on grade 1, and he called more grade 1s to rush my grade 1 Vanguard. He put me to 3 damage, but other than that, it didn't really work out for him. Like, he put me to 3 and then had to G assist for the 2, and then by the time when he was at 2, I got to my waterfall and I just hit him with that and Dragonic Gaia's, and he's like, yeah, I have to take that. And I was like, all right. Round 3, played against Murakumo. Not really scared of the matchup that much. The only thing that does bother me is when you ride to Overlord, a good player will just keep you on Overlord every turn. So what I did game 1 was I saw what he was trying to do. He was at 3 damage. He just kept playing units, just kept attacking my face. He went to 3, had 3 counterblasted damage. When my turn came around, I started hitting his rear guards, didn't want to give him any counterblast. His turn came back around. He dropped a lot of cards from hand. He wanted to keep that pressure on me. I was able to block everything. The 13k base really helps from the force deck versus Excel. And then my turn came around. I went, okay, now I can ride Waterfall and I see you have no cards, and I knew you drive checked. You drive checked like a 2 and a 1. So I played Dragonic Gaius, 3 damage. He went from 3 to 6. That was game 1. Game 2, he rushed me down, and I was hoping to win with Overlord because he said no guard on Overlord. I hit a crit. I put all effects on the Overlord, hoping he wouldn't have enough to block the second attack. So I discarded, blah, blah, blah. The only problem was he hit a heal trigger. So that put him from going from 4, he went to 3. And then since that heal, he had 3 unflipped damage. So I was like, damn, I got to win this turn or I'm getting locked. And I really didn't want to see the full lock at that time because I knew I couldn't take 2 rounds of just attacks not seeing a drive check. So I push him, he blocks it, goes into Zambaku, locks me, attacks a lot, push myself to 5. My turn comes around, I just try and hit his rear guards. I couldn't stand my Vanguard or Ride. And then goes back to his turn. He hit a front trigger, just obliterated me. Game 2. Game 3 was really hectic, really close game. It was standard plays the whole way through. On my, again, he kept playing aggressive, kept playing all his cards from hand. I was making sure to retire boosters when I can, retire cards when I can. And then when I waterfalled, I Dragonic Gaius to push him from 3 to 6. The turn before, made myself go to 5 damage because again, he just kept rushing my Vanguard. Even though he probably should have been hitting my units at that point in the game, he just kept rushing Vanguard. He went from 3 to 6. He had to take it. Only had 2 cards, 3 cards in hand. He went heal. First heal obviously didn't go off because I put myself to 5. Then went draw. Drew a card obviously. And then went heal again. So that was really tilting for me at that point in the game. I really thought I locked up that round and was going 3-0. His turn comes back around. I block for 2 to pass to his Vanguard, but had he hit like a front, I was just banging on him not hitting a front because he just started like anything in hand. He just called to different Excel circles. He didn't hit a front. Came back to my turn, and I teched in 1 grade 4 because I thought he'd be really helpful with the new Excel deck coming out, Great Nature. I thought it was going to be really like overrepresented. So I dropped the grade 4 on him, knew he didn't have any perfect guards. The nullifying trigger effects is exactly what I wanted. God forbid another miracle heal, I would have lost definitely. So yeah, I took game 3 because of grade 4, so I'm happy for that. Round 4, played against Neo Nectar. Didn't see a single waterfall, game 1 or 2. He saw his Cecilias when he wanted them. He got cards when he needed them. There was really no imbalance of triggers. We both hit our fair share of triggers, but not being able to get my boss monster while he had his Cecilia going off, going crazy. It was just insane. Game 2 went a little differently. I rode to 3, saw he had a full field, was like, alright, I have to do something different. Rode to grade 4, blew up his board, attacked, didn't pull a trigger on the single drive check. He pulled a draw, but it didn't work out. It didn't go off because of the grade 4's effect. But next turn, he had a grade 2 that calls a token. So with the token, he just retired a token, filled up his board again. That was GG. He took that one 2-0. Round 5, got to play against Great Nature. That was a pretty easy matchup. I saw waterfalls a good amount. Game 1 was just standard on curve waterfalls. He couldn't deal with it. He didn't have anything crazy going for him. Game 2. Same thing, waterfalls. There was one turn where I was debating. He had a full field. I was able to block everything, and I ended my hand with a waterfall and a grade 4 in hand. And I was debating that whole turn. I was thinking, all right, do I want a vague? Do I want a waterfall? Do I want a vague? Do I want a waterfall? And his drive check was 2 3s, and I was like, waterfall it is. Played the waterfall, put the guys down, counterblasted 1, put him from 3 to 6, and yeah, he took an L on that one. That was a 2-0 victory for me. Round 6, played against Genesis. Just like my teammates discussed, didn't really know what Genesis did. I was aware of the Melissa effect to deck out your opponent because I just got to see my friend's game. But other than that, didn't know what their other capabilities were. Round 1, he does Himiko effect, give everything crits. I was like, it wasn't that bad for me. I took one of them, then blocked the rest. The problem is I didn't see waterfall game 1, and I had the G assist. So I was just really, like, I was always on the back step, and Himiko was just able for him to pressure. Because the first time he Himiko'd, he drew 2 cards off of it, because I was on grade 2, and then the second time he put 3 crits on his units. Then game 2, he honestly, like, that was just a really bad game for me. I also didn't see Waterfall, but what really put me under was he activated the grade 3 effect that has no force. Checked the top 3, kept looking at his damage. That was an easy tell. As soon as he looked at his damage, I was like, all right, a heal trigger's coming. But he put a heal trigger in the soul, and I was like, all right, I'm in for it now. So he goes,
Danger ahead.
Yeah, I was like, wow, okay. I literally told him, I was like, that's an easy tell, and he goes, yeah. And then, so I no guarded the Vanguard. I was like, all right, if he's got double crits, he's got double crits. I didn't have enough to block everything, so I just had to hope he didn't hit anything crazy. Like, just hoping for not double crit. He hit crit heal, arguably just as bad. He went from, put me to 5 while he went back to 2. And then my turn, I waterfalled. I Gaius just because I needed to do something, hoping he would 2 to pass. He was smart enough to no pass it, and he blocked everything else. His turn came back around, and I just lost that one. That was a 2-0 victory for him. And at the end of it, I went 4-2 and took 13th place.
So before you guys go into Top Cut, I guess the biggest question is, what was your hardest matchups, or what was like your hardest round? And since all 3 of you went through the same experience with Genesis, what are your thoughts on the deck and the Melissa combo, whatever?
I feel as Genesis, it's definitely a scary deck. I think we went into the weekend a little bit biased based on what we've seen in Japan's standard, where the deck is non-existent.
We thought it was going to be terrible.
No one's playing it though. That's
So we all went into the weekend assuming. I think I had the hardest time with it because my win condition speeds their win condition. So that to me was a real big problem because I can't win if I don't draw cards, and the more cards I draw, the faster I put them. If he can double or triple Melissa, if you're like, unless you're not putting a full board out there and you're sticking on like one column. But at the same time, if you're not putting damage out there, you can't win the game.
Yeah, you gotta put the 5 cards in that. That's scary, man.
So
You guys all played against the variant playing the bouncing cards so they could continuously Melissa, right?
did you play against the same guy?
You played,
No, he's
No, you
saying
played
He's saying the card.
You and me played against the
There's
same
the
guy.
card that
Yeah.
rests itself
Yeah,
to
Kuman?
bounce
Well,
an
I
unrested
also
card.
played him in top 8 or top
Yeah,
16.
you guys all
Yeah,
played.
sure.
Yeah, we all
I
played
think
against him.
the same guy.
But
Right?
Yeah, John.
he didn't manage to get the Melissa effect off on me. It was my round 2 opponent.
Okay.
The first Genesis player I played.
Melissa.
I managed to get it twice, both turns.
I was actually
Or
gonna
both games.
ask something, Dan, before. How do you feel about a Genesis player using Melissa against Neo Nectar? Because
It's-
with your tokens,
It got you out of your rut too, because you said he gave you a good board.
Yeah,
twice.
Yeah, it was a chick, but my board, I had Cecilia the turn before and called out some grade 3s just to like push some power through. But she had Melissa had gotten rid of those, and 2 of the cards coming off the top were grade 2s. So, so I managed to just put them in the front and had extra guard for her attacks.
See, I had the exact opposite. The first 2 times. Oh, there it goes.
No, it's
no,
just
it's
battery.
Okay. The first 2 times I got Melissa's, I revealed 4 triggers. So I lost 8 triggers in game 1 against the Genesis, which did not make my
Yikes.
game even easier.
Surprisingly.
yeah. So that was rough. But I think Genesis is definitely a good deck. I saw the potential in it that it could play either the straight gimmicky version where it is going for the deck out, but also just the power rush version of it seems very strong as well.
Well, to play it's really only 2 cards, and one of them I think they like to play it anyways. The one that bounces.
Yeah.
Because you're only adding in the Witch Frog or whatever her name is.
Witch of Frogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Melissa, yeah.
That's the only card you're adding in because normally doesn't
I mean,
really coincide with your play
they-
style.
Well, no, you usually bounce the vanilla grade, not the vanilla, the no
Well, you could
marker
put,
grade 3.
You could put like triggers and soul or something with it too. You can
Yeah,
do like some
yeah.
weird stuff.
But it's
but-
just they usually use
Yeah,
it to
so like
the grade
yeah,
3.
they use the bouncer. You play the bouncer normally, but you're adding in the one that
Yeah.
replaces your board. Your
I think it's like a good add.
Well, I think you also play a lot more in the one that is going for the deck out. You play a lot more of the ones that reduce costs of your effects because
those are mandatory.
yeah,
though.
there's
I don't think
only
you play as many of them.
there's only
No,
two.
no, there's 3 of them that reduce costs,
Is it?
isn't there?
I think there's
No.
just
One
the
that
two.
No, one
reduces
or
by
two.
2.
Oh.
There's one
I
that
thought there was
reduces by
two,
3, and then there's one that reduces by 2.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the 2 is a counterblast, the 1 is on call.
Oh, okay.
That's why they all play the bouncer, because you put the 3 back in hand.
No,
You
I'm
need
thinking
that.
about the grade 2 that gets plus 15k.
Yeah,
The
the
triple rare?
That puts a
yeah,
card
yeah,
in
that
solo.
puts a card
Yeah,
in
yeah,
solo.
yeah.
It's
I was
like
thinking
kind
about
I was just
one.
wondering about the green the Neo Nectar thing, because like if you have tokens and they're giving you better units to call.
Yeah, that again,
Yeah.
that was also one of the things. I had in one of those games, I had 3 tokens in the back row, and maybe like 1 or 2 of the times I had gotten like 2 triggers, but again, it was mostly just grade 2s that went into the front,
Yeah.
and then grade 1s that I just stuck in the back.
Yeah.
So she, each time she did that, she helped me get a better board for my next turn.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
Or just thin the deck out.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it's not really. The card isn't meant to be a win condition. I don't think that's what it's like was originally meant for.
Mhm.
So you're adding in that random nature. Where if your opponent hits a board of all triggers, they're probably going to lose, but
Yeah.
they could just get better units. They can
Yeah.
get. Does it apply on call effects?
No.
No.
On call effects do not
Again, they
trigger
get-
at this
yeah.
time.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think that was our Swiss rounds. Like I said, we finished 5th, 10th, and 13th overall. The top cut split was actually it was 12 force, me as the only protect, and 3 excel.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was 2 Murakuma, 1 Great Nature.
Yeah,
Yes.
2 Murakuma, 1 Great Nature. One of the Murakuma, 1 of the Great Nature, or this 1 in 16 seed, so they actually played each other.
Mhm.
So the rest of the field was 12 force, 1 protect, and 1 excel.
Did we figure out how many Neo Nectars there were up there?
There was.
I think it was easily the rest.
Like,
no, I
it
think it
was
was
2.
8. It was 8.
It was
It was
2
like
Kagero,
2 Kagero, 2 Genesis.
and
Yeah.
then
It was, yeah, it was,
eight
yeah, it was
Neos.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense right there. Yeah.
Wow, over
Diverse-
50%.
Diverse
Okay.
form.
So we're going to go into top 16 now. We're going to run through our top 16 matchups, and you'll find out where we all fell. So in top 16, I played against the last Excel that I played against Morikumo. That matchup's just hard. Like, for the OTT matchup, it's just, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
It's every matchup.
Never lucky life.
My opponent was really good. He knew exactly what to do. I kept him at low counterblast early. I made it so I couldn't re-ride, but like I actually mulliganed my hand, so I didn't want to re-ride. I actually kept getting a Word of Promise daughter, Imperial Daughters, because I just kind of wanted him to keep wasting the counterblast. Not wasting, he does it anyway. I kept grinding him. It got to a point where I hit his rear guards instead of hitting his vanguard. He had no outface of counterblast. I finally had the Imp Daughter. I wrote it. I checked top. Didn't hit a crit trigger. Threw it to the bottom. Rushed vanguard. Basically, I needed to hit the crit trigger on one of the last 2 checks to put him from 3 to 6. I could not put him at a point where you could counterblast. He recognized the fact that I was playing the matchup correctly and was not going to attack my rear guards into his vanguard unless it was killing him. He thought about it for maybe 30 seconds, decided to take my vanguard, take the risk, basically understanding the fact that if my vanguard attack was guarded, I was not going to vanguard with any of my other attacks. Proceed to go trigger dry on the attack, put him to 5 damage. He has 2 face up. I proceed to not be able to re-ride off of Imp Daughter, and then the rush of game 1. He rode Zembaku 3 times, so he was sitting on good 6 attacks, and I was just not, I just couldn't damage track a trigger. I was just not. Game 1 did not go my way at all. Game 2, I ended up having to G-assist for my 1. Got Circle Magus off of it still. And then my opponent, again, being the good player that he was, he had 2 attacks up. He attacked his rear guard into my Vanguard. I guarded it. And then he passed. So I was already down card advantage from G-assisting, and then he didn't give me the draw off of Circle Magus. I, at that point, said, okay, continue to ride my turn, continue to play my turn. I played it out. Still had 0 damage, which was nice, but he just started accumulating card advantage. The next turn, he hit one of my rear guards with his Vanguard. I had to let it die. He proceeds to pass again to not give me counterblast for my grade 3 ride. So I'm still at 0 damage, but I can't get cards. So I draw for turn, and I'm actually forced to ride Imperial Daughter. So not only did I G-assist, not only did I not get to draw for Circle Magus, I then didn't get to draw for my grade 3 effect. And at that point, there was just... it spiraled out of control.
Good game.
I had no way of generating card advantage. My triggers weren't coming, and he just kept putting. I played the game with him. We were both staying low damage, but I was killing his rear guards. Eventually, he had to give me counterblast. I rode to CEO, started trying to draw some cards back, but then he just stuck me on CEO. Basically, got to a point he was at 5 damage. He had 1 face up. I had no cards in hand, and I was on CEO, and I drew into Imperial Daughter, and everyone watching the game that watched me draw the cards like, oh, Roche wins. And then I'm like, nope, I got Zanbaku'd last turn, so this Imperial Daughter is getting called to rear guard. I attack, he guards it because he had like 10 cards in hand, and the matchup just ended poorly for me. So that was the end of my tournament. Like I said, I played 3 Force decks, punted against the 3rd one, and then played 4 Excel decks in a row. So... great day for me, but at the same time, not really what you want to see.
Question is, though, how many Musashi did he have?
Oh, yeah.
Didn't see one. Actually, no, I saw one game 1. I saw one Musashi
You
game
want
1.
to explain that one or
No.
no? Alright.
Inside joke, guys.
You guys don't need to know.
So, I'll go next since I went the second farthest.
Spoiling it
Yeah,
for
dude.
everybody.
Well, they don't know how far I could have came second. I could have came, 8th. Who knows?
Shocker, he didn't.
That hurt me more than him.
So my top 16 opponent was Genesis. I actually was able to play against a guy who beat both of them. So
Really good player.
you know what to do it for the boys.
Yeah, time to talk shit now. Wait till it gets
Oh
done.
yeah. So he was a good player. I've had the privilege of playing with him before at locals. He's a good player all around. Game 1 goes. He didn't. I don't think he wanted the setup he had. On my grade 2, he Himiko'd to draw 2 cards. And I don't think he Himiko'd after that at all.
He did
Oh,
not.
yeah,
I was watching that
he
game.
was 1 card
He
away
was,
from
yeah,
the
he was
combo.
1 soul short from
Yeah.
killing
Yeah, that was game 1. So but I had my overlords into waterfall. Like it was just, I got what I wanted. He got unlucky.
Yeah, you opened really
Uno
well.
out.
You opened really good.
Who?
Yeah, you opened
Oh, me.
really
I
good,
opened up almost perfect. I put 1 back just because I didn't. I'm pretty sure I opened like a trigger, like bar, berserk, bellicosity, and then 2 overlord waterfall.
Yeah.
I think that's how I opened. I was like, okay, this hand's great. Oh no, I opened the 1 berserk and then overlord. Waterfall, put the trigger back, got bellicosity. I was like, okay, this hand's near perfect.
Your
Like,
draw checks were broken too.
yeah, game 1 was an easy game, honestly. I was lucky that he didn't get the second Himiko effect off. That might have changed things, but I might have accumulated too much advantage by that point. Game 2 got really interesting. He Himiko'd, drew, then I'm pretty sure he Himiko'd again, and did the crits. I took 1 of them, put myself to 5, blocked the other 2, and then he on my turn, I was in an okay position. Like, yeah, he did Himiko twice, but I also had water. I rode Waterfall, and I had another one in hand. Had a good amount of cards to block, unless he did something crazy. Unless he, like, called the grade 3, got 2 triggers to the top. I think I was okay that game. But I won game 1, and during my turn, the option occurred to me. I attack with Waterfall. He was at 4 or 5. I want to say he was at 4, actually. Yeah, he was at 4, definitely. He drops a lot of cards from hand because I had an Airmo behind the Waterfall, and I think this is the first Waterfall after riding Overlord. And so I had a Berserk that already attacked, that, and then I had a column of Netlahim and Bar. That was at 23, I think, because Netlahim got to retire that turn. So I saw his hand. He dropped a lot for Waterfall. He only had 2 cards left in hand.
Yeah.
So I was thinking to myself, okay, like, if I get a crit, like, I can just win this by putting it on the rear guard. But I remembered 2 turns ago he had a PG.
Yeah.
So I 100% knew that, okay, like, I gotta ball out this turn, tackle Waterfall.
He made
First
it 2 to
check
pass.
was, yeah, he goes 2 to pass, surprisingly. First check was a crit. At that point, I was thinking about it. I was going to go all effects to Vanguard, but I decided to put the crit on rear guard because if he was going from 4 to 5, wouldn't have been a big deal for him. He would have just took that attack. I'm more about, I want him to waste cards so my next turns are stronger. So I went crit rear guard, power Vanguard. Then the second check ended up being a crit. That put him from 4 to 7. Only reason why I was that ballsy was because it was a little strategic, and I won game 1. That helped a lot. Built my confidence up, knowing that, hey, if I mess up now, I go to game 3, and I can still top 8, and I can still do fine.
Good old Waterfall special.
And then we get to top 8.
I think we should hear Dan's top 16 first.
Oh, you want to hear Dan's top 16 first?
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
Let's go for it. My top 16, I played against the same Kagero player I beat round 5.
Really cool guy.
Yeah, really nice guy.
I feel bad for him.
Waterfall!
I feel like a lot of people really cool at this event.
Yeah.
I like the Vanguard community.
There's
There's a
like-
couple
There is
exceptions.
a
Yeah,
couple.
There's a
Yeah.
couple
Yeah,
exceptions.
there's like
Couple
3 people in
exceptions.
Top Cut that were. But
top 16, I played against my round 5 opponent. When they announced the seeding for top 16, I immediately remembered his name. We sat across from each other and we gave each other a look like, here it goes again. So it was against Kagero.
Here it did indeed go again.
I had managed to pick it up 2-1, unfortunately. Game 1, he had gone to Overlord with a booster. I wasn't paying attention, didn't realize he didn't have any rear guards. So on his final attack, I had blocked for 2 to pass, and he had gotten the draw trigger first, and then the crit, which put me at 6 damage and lost me the game. I had plenty of guard in hand to spare. I could have blocked for 5 to pass and still had decent advantage to put on my board next turn, but
That's next month, Dan.
yes. But
2 more
but
months.
I had completely forgot that he didn't have any rear guards, so that cost me the game. Game 2, same as round 5. I managed to push him high enough damage, but he had plenty of cards in hand to spare. He blocked for 2 to pass, and again I double crit him.
Okay.
Yeah, again, the same reasoning. He had plenty of guard, so I might as well have just put it on the Vanguard and hoped for the extra trigger, the extra triggers afterward.
Sometimes lucky.
Yeah, it all came down to luck.
We don't call him Miracle Trigger Dan for
Yeah.
nothing.
But again,
Call him Daddy Dan.
the first crit came up. I put it on the Vanguard, hoping to get through because I wasn't going to get through the other attacks with his hand size. Luckily enough, the second crit came through and put him to 6. Game 3, it was a little bit more balanced. We both hit a decent amount of triggers. But again, it came down to him being at 5 damage, him only having enough to guard.
I think Andrew, he needed the waterfall to win too.
Yeah, he needed the waterfall to win,
Yeah.
but he was at 5 damage.
Stories all the
He
time.
didn't have enough cards in hand to block everything, so he blocked. He blocked for 1 to pass,
Yeah.
and I hit the crit on the first one. Just put it on there. Second check was another crit, and I just
Yeah.
threw it on there just for good measure.
You were pressuring him a lot. Like I
Yeah.
think he hit his waterfall turn. You made it like a no pass.
Yeah,
And after that, he just couldn't pressure you. After
yeah.
that.
He didn't have enough cards in hand just to keep on a.
He
even
like cleared his
playing field.
board, and then after that, he's just like, oh.
That's the inherent advantage Neonectar has.
Getting
He
free
gets
shit.
he gets rid of 1 card. I just replace it with 2 more for the cost of.
And he used like that 1 card to kill his 2 cards. He's just like, oh.
And that was my top 16 getting the 2-1 victory.
So what happened in top 8, guys?
Yeah, top 8.
Good old.
Me and Josh over here had to play each other. I'll let you start.
I'm just gonna start off with a little note I wrote to myself when filling out this sheet about my matchups. For top 8, I put my opponent Neonectar 2-0. I'm not gonna tell you how the game goes, but the notes were Dan is scum. Double crit at 2 to pass while I was at 2 damage. Just to remind myself, even though it's mentally burned in my mind now, it was really uncalled for.
Well, there's really only one solution.
Yeah,
You're good.
I gotta get better. I gotta get better.
Good.
Get better.
So, game 1, I'll tell my side of the story,
Alright.
and then you can tell yours. Game 1, it was pretty even for both of us. I saw what I wanted to see at first, and so did Dan. I'm pretty sure you rode the Cecilia that game. I think you rode both games. You got the
That's usually where the 2-0 comes from.
yeah.
He opened good.
But
both
it's
his
also
games.
the fact that my board was Cecilia with a grade 3 already under it,
Yeah.
2 Spinach Advisors, and I
Yeah.
think 2 Corolla Dragons behind them.
No, you had 1 Corolla, 1 token.
1 Corolla, 1 token,
Yeah.
and those columns are just massive by that
You're
point.
leaving out the
Yeah.
most important part. You're just so much better than Josh.
Yeah, that is true.
Just a titan of intellect. He knew Josh's play before he could even conceive it.
So, like he said, he had a good board. At first I had what I wanted. I rode Berserk, rode Overlord, got to Waterfall in 1 turn. He kept himself low. I'm pretty sure you were at 2 damage or 3,
Something like that.
something like that. Yeah, he was playing well. I might have Gaiused if he was at 2 damage. I don't remember it too well. But all I remember was after that Waterfall, I did not get another one. Whereas once he rode his second Cecilia, it's all downhill
Yeah,
from
it
there.
spiraled out of control.
It's a lot of force.
That was But that game was pretty fair. There's no really imbalance of triggers. I felt like we both hit a decent amount.
Yeah, it was a decent split.
It was a good game. Neonectar being as much as it was in the top 16, I'm not surprised that it would. Going into the tournament, I knew Neonectar would probably beat me 60-40, but I would take those odds because I like my matchup to Murakumo, I like my matchup to Angels, and I love my matchup to Great Nature as long as they don't hamster me to death or something like that. Then you want me to explain game 2, or you want to take that one over?
The thing to note about game 1 was with that final attack turn, he did guard for 2 to pass.
That was game 2, right?
No, that was game 1.
Oh, really?
Game
Yeah.
Game 2 was
you're
game
right.
2.
So baggy.
But
I
game
forgot, yeah.
1, he did block for 2 to pass. I hit the crit trigger first. Contemplated going all on the Vanguard, like I had throughout the tournament. But with the columns, the sizes that they were, I had put the first crit on my second largest Spinach Advisor column, which put it about on par with the other one. And then I hit the crit trigger again, and I just put it on the other column.
What was that, 4 damage?
Yeah, I just managed to just blow through.
I'm not protected. I don't have 70 Gs in hand. You know, it's a hard life I live.
Good game.
Good old
And
spicy
then,
game 2, boys.
Yeah, that I forgot to mention that. That was a good point. But game 2 is where it gets real fun for me. Great time. So I rode. It was a standard game. I'm pretty sure I saw Berserk. I rode Overlord. I don't think I had a waterfall in hand by that point, but it didn't matter apparently. Because I rode Overlord, I attacked. I think you actually let the Overlord attack go through, and then I pitched to like stand it, or something like that. Yeah, putting him to 4, I think. So I was happy with how the game was going until his turn came around, and then was this your second Cecilia ride?
I think it was not the second Cecilia.
No, it was
ride,
the first one.
But it was the first Cecilia, but it had I think it was the maiden underneath.
No. It was the first one because I remember you attacked 13 to 13. I just dropped the 15k, said 2 to pass.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he Cecilia first. He counterblasted to call 2 units. Makes sense. Standard play. 13. I block his first attack. His last column was the biggest. He attacks 13 of my 13. And I'm like, all right, I'm at 2 damage, but knowing I'm playing against Neo Nectar, I'm probably never gonna get the chance to use a 15k guard and be like 2 to pass, because like that's just an efficient way to block against Neo Nectars, like given the opportunity. So I go 2 to pass, 28 to 13.
I do want to point out though that we knew we were going to play each other. We were in the same side of the brackets, and I won my game first, my round 16, my top 16 match first, and watched him play. When I saw him won, I knew immediately that we were going to play just based on the order of our seating. So we had both just talked to each other a bit. It was going to be one of us was going to advance, and for us this was just technically a fun game for us.
Yeah.
It just came down to who got luckier.
Yeah.
But he, as he said, he had blocked with a 15k, making it 2 to pass, and I hit.
Oh, you 2 to pass.
You hit. I was at 2 damage.
He was at 2 damage.
Your first one was a crit.
Yeah, first one was a crit. Put it to the Vanguard. Second one was a crit.
Yeah.
Put it to the Vanguard.
That 2 to 5 turn.
Yeah,
Not
put
fun.
it to 5.
It really is.
And then I'm pretty sure your last column was a exploding tomato, which used the effect that.
Oh, that's a
turn.
big
Yeah.
Something like that. It was on a it was on a force marker too. I was just like, oh.
That's another 30k.
Yeah.
Well, no. It would have been
53.
backwards. Because
Oh yeah, you would
I would have
exploding.
I would attack with the tomato first.
Pop it off. Get the
Pop it off. Get the tokens.
Then I think it was spinach advisor.
Yeah, spinach advisor was the
This
last
is way
attack.
more terrifying.
Yeah, and especially with the exploding tomato, like calling 2 cards again, like this is a big boy.
Powerful 6K.
So that 2 to pass put me through.
Yeah,
Oh,
I went from 2 to 5, and that last column was like 50k or something like that, or 40k, and I
Yeah.
was like,
There was
I had 2 cards in hand. I'm like, all right, yeah, you got it.
again, there was no real reason for me to put the first crit on the Vanguard, other than the fact that I was playing a teammate, and it was technically between us a fun game.
Yeah, taking game 1 too obviously helps your
It
confidence,
helped me because like
You can always risk more
Yeah.
when you win game.
yeah, I had the advantage in the round.
Yeah.
Against
Exactly.
Good old top
So
4.
yeah, that was our top 8, knocking him out and leaving top 4 being 4 Neo Nectar.
That's when I sailed away.
I wouldn't want to be in there either.
So-
I would have killed to be in that.
Oh, I know.
So
Mistake
top
marker.
4 I played against
Mistake marker.
one of the other 3 Neo Nectars, and had lost that 0 to 2. Game 1 I was stuck on Maiden,
Yeah.
and like my round 6 against Neo Nectars, my cards came a turn late, so I would take a damage. It'd be a booster that I needed for my next attack. Draw for turn being a trigger. Have nothing really to call out. Pass the turn, try to block what I could. Take a damage, it being another booster. Drawing for turn, another trigger. So that's how things went for game 1. Game 2 though went downhill from the get-go. I was grade locked on 0. Missed the G assist the first turn, and then he just proceeded to go off with Sylvia's and Spinach Advisors, and it just went downhill from there. I did manage to get to grade 3. It was a tomato though, so it didn't help. but it still, the deck got me to top 4. I'm still happy about it. It's better than I anticipated going into the event, and it just got me there. I do want to say one thing though. The majority of players I did play against, who didn't know that Spinach Advisor existed, saw me drop it, looked at it, and I can see in their head like, oh shit, I didn't know this thing existed. No one I know is playing it. They're all playing Caveat, which is just a 1 turn.
15.
Yeah, plus it's
Plus five
plus
for
five
grade
for each grade, I believe it's token.
Yeah.
Zero.
It might just
Yeah,
be a
or 0. But again, it's just a 1 turn thing, and once that turn is over, you don't have to worry about it. You can just keep pushing their Vanguard. Whereas Spinach Advisor is just a grade 2 Corolla Dragon.
Yeah.
Gets +3 for every unit called by an effect, and it just gets massive.
It's like you do that every turn.
Yeah, and it just every turn, especially when you ride your Cecilia and have a grade 3 under it, it's just +9 every time. Every time you hit the effect, plus the 10k that it gets if it's in the front row when you use the Cecilia effect.
Plus the
Force marker.
Plus the force marker. Plus if you have Tomato, getting those 2 extra tokens to call one behind it, getting another +6, or getting
plus 15.
the
right
Fruits
there.
Basket Elf, which gives 2 tokens that are +5 to each if you have the grade 3. So it's again another +6 on top of it already. It just blows them out of the water, and them not knowing that I was going to drop that on them, I knew instantly that they lost the match.
Yeah, fun fact about that, Dan actually had to go to MIT for a math. To do that math when playing Neo Nectar is really hard deck to play. Calling units, giving power.
Yeah.
He owns like 300 pair of dice. You know, it happens.
Yeah, it happens.
I like the free cards that come with free power.
Yeah.
They told me Skull Wish from the main was broken. I'd like a single 5k this turn. I'll wait the next one for another.
But with this Neo Nectar just having a sale 2 for 1, you just can't go wrong with
Yeah.
2 for none. Token for free too.
Yeah, but you still call the one cards 2 for the price of 1.
It's true.
Right.
2 for 1, you do 2 for 1, and 2 for 1.
So
Any
yeah,
other final thoughts? Anyone?
you guys got any questions?
Fuck me up.
I do want to thank ProPlay for running the event. Bit of an issue though, the 6-round event with top 16, top 8, top 4, and finals did take, because of some players, some issues happened. Did take about 12 hours to run.
Yeah.
We didn't leave the event.
Till 10:30.
Yeah, about 10:30 when I lost top 4.
Yeah.
That's when we decided to leave. I was the one driving.
So it was,
It was
like
11.
It
It was 11.
No, it was 10 because we got to we
Oh,
got
we left there, but it finished.
yeah, it finished around 11:30.
Okay.
But
too long.
yeah, it took too long. There was an issue in one of the top 16 matches that took a while to resolve.
Yeah.
That accounted for most of the time, and then getting into top 8 as well. There was a discussion amongst the players and the tournament organizers that took a bit of time. But all in all, it was, other than the time issues, the tournament was ran smoothly. They managed to get the rounds up, the pairings for each round up relatively quickly. And again, I can't say anything bad about Pro Play.
They were all very
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah,
George
they're
and staff were
nice.
They're all very
super
nice,
friendly.
very accommodating.
Yeah, and I hope that they bring more events to the Northeast.
Definitely be there if they do.
Yeah.
We'll definitely be traveling. We'll definitely be seeing a lot more of everyday gaming in the upcoming years. Make sure you keep following us, like, subscribe, check out our videos. If there's anything you want to see, please let us know. If you have any questions, please leave them down below. With that, this has been John Roche
Dan?
Josh.
with Everyday Gaming.